It's a real pleasure to still have you here on the AM show. I'm Bernice Abube-Dulansa. Earlier, you saw my colleague Benjamin Akako discussing the impact of the domestic debt exchange program and the IMF deals and all that on our economy. Well, caterers under the school feeding program say they will not yield to intimidation to resume work. For about 3 weeks, they've withdrawn their services in demand for payment of arrears and an increase in the cooking grant per child from 97 pesos to 3 cedis. Now, they want leadership of the program to desist from issuing threats in addressing their challenges. Today, I've got two people who understand these issues better, who have worked in the sector, to share their thoughts on that with us. Former Minister for Gender, Madam Otiku Afisa-Jaba, joins me on the line. Good morning to you. Trust you're doing well. It's been a while.
Good morning to your viewers. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes. I remember when the caterers announced their strike, first in Kumasi, your name was mentioned. One of the caterers says that during your era, things were managed better. First off, what is your appreciation of what is happening now? And tell us what you were doing differently when you were gender minister.
Thank you very much. School feeding is an important tool to alleviate poverty, reduce hunger and malnutrition in children. And to alleviate poverty means that reducing poverty in the children, in the caterers, in the farmers, in the parents. And so, when we come to this point where they are being paid only 97 pesos per meal, it's ridiculous. It means government is pretending to pay caterers, and caterers are pretending to cook. It's not possible to cook any meal, let alone a hot, nutritious meal for 97 pesos. And so, it's important that the government should pay the caterers all the amounts that are due them. The contract is not a charitable one. It is not a non-profit exercise. It is for them to earn an income because most of them, 80% of the caterers are women. They don't work. Some of them are women organizers, but most of them are not women organizers. They are widows. They are single parents. They are looking for how to be breadwinners and take care of the needs of their families. They also engage people who clean, who serve the food, who cut up the onions and other things. So if they are not being paid, they cannot pay those workers. They buy fuel, electricity, water. The parents benefit because they don't now have to find money for the child. But if you don't do that, that means parents now have to look for money to feed the children. And children who don't get that will not go to school, so it will increase absenteeism, and rather the purpose of increasing enrollment will backfire. And so, the arrears is supposed to be paid in terms of the contract. It's a pre-financing thing, and the pre-financing should not be more than a term. Most workers in Ghana are paid monthly. All public servants are actually paid monthly. But school feeding, the contract is that it should be termly because the children go to school per term. So that a term is about 3 months. And so if that is the case, why should caterers always cry and fight before they are paid? Just like you, when it's the end of the month, you have to go on strike, you will be paid. And so they should be paid timely and promptly so that they can also get the money to go and repay the people they owe. When you owe somebody for tomatoes, for meat, for salt, or a pre-finance company or a bank, and you don't pay them, they will not give you any finance or the foodstuffs again. So until the caterers are paid, how will they pay for what they already owe? Some are owed not only the third term, second, and the first term. And it's important that they should feel good. And there is no motivation when you always have to cry and fight before you are paid, and then you are being underpaid. Is it because we don't value what they are doing for us? The whole purpose of working is job satisfaction. And if you are not well paid, you cannot be happy. If you are indebted and people are always knocking on your door for their money, always crying at you, you feel humiliated and disgraced. Why should that be? Teachers don't face that.
What were you doing differently during your time? Because yes, we know that what the contract says is that these caterers must pre-finance the cooking and feeding of the children, and then government will pay at the end of the term. But this time around, the caterers say the backlog is too much. What was it like during your time?
The pre-finance should be for one term. One term, not 2, 3 terms, 4 terms. And you should notify the cases. I used to notify them. You put notifications. So your number of days of cooking, the amount that is due you get a notice on your phone. So you know the amount that you are expected to be paid. And the issue of Ipswich and somebody's Ipswich number is not good and all of that. We got them to reconcile it with a gift. So you don't now wait when it's time for payment. You say that, oh, somebody's Ipswich number is wrong. What was the Ipswich number you were using to pay them before? I used to go to the Minister of Finance's house, sometimes as early as 5 a.m., to wait for him to ensure that the necessary processes at the Ministry of Finance are hastened for payment. And payment should be timely. Once it is not timely, then you have these problems. I also used to have meetings with the caterers to hear them out. Because if you are in Accra, you don't know what is happening in the north or in the Volta or wherever. And so it's important to meet them or their leaders quarterly or even a half yearly to listen to their grievances. And when they petition, we should understand that they are not petitioning to shame anybody or to spoil anybody's job. They are fighting for their rights. Fighting for your rights is about justice. Where there is no justice, you will have chaos. And when they refuse to cook because they are not being paid, let nobody be mysterious to say that they are shaming a government or anybody. It is their due, and they need to be respected.
You appear to have an issue, Madam Japa. You seem to have an issue with the proactiveness in solving this matter. We also have seen how this situation has progressed over the time. Initially, it was just caterers in the Ashanti region, but now their colleagues across the 16 regions have joined them. What could have been done between the time the Kumasi caterers went on strike to prevent what we are seeing today, which is now a nationwide issue?
First, the regional minister of the Ashanti region should have been more tolerant of them, and he should apologize to them for his behavior. Secondly, the secretariat and the minister for gender should have called them by now to hear them out. I also understand that they've written letters to various departments and ministries concerned. To date, they have not heard anything. When you cry or make a plea, you should be heard. And the only way for discussion and negotiation is to call them to a meeting. Since Kumasi to date, who has called them for a meeting? That should be done immediately. And they should not be disrespected. You see, there is an issue of gender imbalance in this country. But we need to understand that 80% of the small-scale businesses are done by women. And they feed into the GDP. And it's important that their welfare and their conditions of service should be addressed promptly. The word is timely. If you don't pay somebody timely, then you are looking for trouble for them and for yourself. Because food prices have increased. Utility prices have increased. You know all the things, fuel and what have you. It's important that we make them feel good about themselves and we appreciate what they are doing because it's a public service that they are offering. And it is a contract. The contract means that I offer this service, you pay me this amount. But if I offer the service and you don't pay me for so long, then you need to sit with me and talk. When the workers go on strike, don't they sit with TUC and the various workers on a negotiating table? Why are they not doing that for the women in the catering? Is it because they are women? Is it because we don't appreciate their services? Why would you pay anybody 97 cedis? Is it because you undervalue the effort or the service they are providing?
97 pesos, it is, less than a cedi.
Come again?
I would say 97 pesos.
97 pesos. How much is bofrot? How much is kose? A ball of kenke, how much is it? Madam, how can you cook any meal, let alone a hot meal, for 97 pesos? I came and met it at 80 pesos. I took it to government to increase it to 2 cedis. They said that they couldn't, and they brought it down to 1 cedi. This was in 2018. We are now in 2023. What is the rate of inflation? What are the food prices like now? And so, they have a valid point. The caterers have a valid point. And
I'm happy.
Feel strongly that I must support and back them. Government must pay their arrears and increase the amount immediately and have a session with them, a discussion.
I'm happy.
All the arrears will be paid when. They want to know when the arrears will be paid and when the increments will be paid and what is the increment. These are valid questions. Then, if you are working, wouldn't you want to know how much will be paid?
Definitely. I'm happy you brought in the issue of the current economic situation. Government has admitted times are hard. You just spoke about the rate of inflation. There are concerns, and in fact, at the early stages when we were discussing the economic woes, we were told that things will get worse before they get better. We are yet to receive an IMF deal. We don't know when that is coming. So everybody is literally living on the edge. Would you say it's time to think innovatively, re-strategize how to go about this whole school feeding program? Because clearly, as it is now, government appears to be struggling not only on the school feeding front, but in other sectors of the economy. The whole pre-financing arrangement, how can we innovatively move this program forward?
Thank you. I want us to just focus on the school feeding. The issues of the economy can be for another day. On school feeding, to make it innovative, to find other ways, one, they have to sit with the caterers. You see, when you do anything about somebody, you need to involve them in the decision making. And they will tell you how it should be done. And then, with their input, you can then come out with the final decision. It's also important that we help them with the pre-financing. When I was a minister, we had an arrangement with Maslow. It was a pilot. And the Maslow advanced, I think, 5,000 per caterer. And it was deducted from source. That can continue. So that each time that they are paid, then automatically the money should not, the deduction should not go to Ministry of Gender, but should go straight to Maslow. They should also digitize the system, put in a management of information system, so that we reduce the human errors and all of those issues that are affecting them. Finding the money, the World Bank can be a part of it. This is a sustainable development goal, an agenda that started in 2005 under the Millennium Development Goals, school feeding. It is being done in Brazil and other places. We should be able to improve upon it and not to worsen the conditions of the people. School feeding needs to be improved. Without that, there is no point because, as I said, it will mean that government is undervaluing the services of the caterers, not appreciating them enough, and pretending to pay them. And they will also pretend to cook. So sometimes you see that the quality of the food is affected, the quantity is affected. So all these things, let us be real. Ghanaians, we like to talk a lot, but when it comes to the action, we fall short. This is the time for action for caterers. They are a vulnerable social group who must be looked at and their welfare and their services of condition must be effectively addressed immediately. Since 2018, they've been crying for all these things, and we are still at bay. For how long are they going to keep crying? Others have died. Others have all sorts of health issues because of the fact that they are not paid on time. And I'm sure if you did a research, you'll find that anytime they are not cooking, then it means that enrollment will reduce. As a rural development practitioner in Tumu, when school feeding came, class sizes exploded because a lot of the farming communities, the vulnerable communities, they don't have the funds to send children to school in terms of food. So if you don't go to the farm, you don't eat. But with school feeding, they came to the school to eat, my sister. And then they stayed. And today they are nurses and journalists like yourself. Sorry, come again.
No, I didn't say anything. Please continue with your submission.
Yes. And so when you are working at serving and improving poverty, improving enrollment, those are fundamental to the development of any country. For sustainable development, vulnerable groups like the caterers and vulnerable children must be a priority. It is a measure of any country's welfare how vulnerable people, particularly women and children, fare. And if it is not going well, that means we need to immediately address these situations. I'm very passionate about this issue, and I am for the caterers and the children because I believe in Ghana, and I believe that we can do better, and we must do better. May Day is coming. Are the caterers not part of the workforce of Ghana? We keep talking about future leaders. We must show that we are serious about educating our children. And if they go to school to eat and remain and serve the country later, then we must invest wherever the government will find the money. I am calling upon the President and the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Gender to look for that money and pay them. We are coming to the end of April. Since January, what have they been doing about it? Listen, these are urgent times, and we need urgent decisions for urgent results. Government must stop pretending to pay caterers, and caterers must stop pretending to cook for the sake of Mother Ghana. I thank you all.
Right, I appreciate your call, and thank you for using this platform to reach out to the minister and the both finance and gender ministers. But have you personally tried to intervene? I know some of the caterers said they reached out to you. Have you tried to use your obviously your position as a member of the governing party to try and intervene?
I'm 61 years old now. I've retired from politics. I empathize with them. I've listened to them, and that's why I've agreed to discuss this with you.
Right.
When you're given a position as the Minister of Gender, it is a unique position. I urge the Minister for Gender to sit up and ensure that the promise that the caretaker minister, Madam Cecilia Dapa, made, that all caterers' arrears have been paid, should be paid because they were not paid. I also urge the Minister of Finance, who said in 2022 that in 2023, the feeding grant will be increased to reflect the current cost of living. That should be adhered to. And I also urge them to find means through MASLOC and the National Buffer Stock to be able to support the pre-financing program so that we can improve upon school feeding program and have a sense of motivation and appreciation for the caterers. So they will feel good about what they are doing. And when workers are happy, they will also produce good quality and nutritious food. And the children will be happy, the farmers will be happy, the traders, they buy the thing, everybody, the media, we will all be happy. And Ghana will be better for it. That is my involvement.
Finally from me to you, Madam Mutiku Japa. When you just mentioned the caretaker minister, it just brought my mind to concerns about how the gender ministry itself has been treated. People felt that there was not much attention, the needed attention and focus and priority given to that ministry. Do you see that as a possible effect or trickle down to some of these issues like school feeding that affect the caterers, who are women largely, and the children who are at the heart of the program? Finally.
You're pushing me into politics. I said, let's stick to school feeding matters. The Ministry of Gender, like other ministries, is a very important area. It used to be called Ministry of Women and Children, so that we will focus on women and children. Now, it is the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection. It is the house of the most vulnerable. It is the place where the voiceless are to be addressed. And the ministry needs to set up to fulfill its core mandate. If that is not done, Ghana will continue to be like the person who is running with one leg tied, because the vulnerable are more than those who are wealthy, and they will weigh the rest of the wealthy people down unless we increase their ability to also be wealthy. That is the whole idea of alleviating poverty and the sustainable development goals. The time has come for the Ministry of Gender to end the reason for which it was established. It has been asleep, in my opinion, for some time. It must wake up. It must wake up. I reiterate, it must wake up. The women of Ghana, the children of Ghana, need their services. Social protection should not be taken lightly. And for a developing country like Ghana, having 61.2% of our population being women, we need to let the women understand that gender equality is a right. Gender equity is a right. And issues that affect women must be handled effectively and meaningfully by the Ministry of Gender, so that the development of this country will be sustainable. I thank you. Have a good
Appreciate
day.
your time. Thank you so much. Otiko Afisa Jaba is former gender minister, and she's been sharing her thoughts with us on the nationwide strike by school feeding caterers. She has worked with them before. Many of them have called on her. She says that she empathizes with them, and that's why she is appealing to those responsible to ensure that their demands are met. Well, it's now time for us to focus on students, Ghanaian students outside the country, precisely in Sudan, where a war has broken out. We just want to get a quick update on how they're doing. We'll do so right after this. Tuesday.